See, immediate gratification is something which is rampant. आप ब्लिंकिट से कुछ सामान ले लो, आपको पॉइंट्स मिल जाते हैं. आप बीएमएस से टिकट ले लो, आपको 10 रुपए ऑफ मिल जाता है, कूपन मिल जाता है. That is how our world is now rotating. But then it becomes a challenge for a learning and development specialist because not everything can be instant. No, some things will take time. For example, my boss expects me to, churn things uh, at the drop of a hat. कि ये तुम करोगे immediately हो जाएगा. नहीं होता. For example, I was trying to present a model in my previous organization. And they said, what kind of benefits will I see? I said, this will be realizable not before 1 year. And they were like, why will it take so much time? Nowadays, things happen much faster. Who plans for a year? After COVID, nobody plans for a year. So there's a very big cultural question. And this you will struggle with when you have young bosses who have um, less experience or almost experience as you have. They don't seem to get the length, breadth, and depth of learning and development. Most of the time, unfortunately, the bosses we get are either HR folks or operations folks who have started wearing a double hat of training and development. And for them, everything is a number, everything is a return on investment. So everything has to be instantly satisfied. Now, the people, that's a bigger challenge. Everybody wants instant gratification. मैंने आज aspirational role बोला, मेरे को अभी
चीजें
के अभी
वहां मैटर
aspirational role
करती है.
बोलो. हाँ, sorry, was that for me? No, it was not for me. Okay. Yeah, it was a background noise. Okay. So you want a role. Tomorrow I want the role. I did well. You give me a promotion. So it is a very big question about how you set up your learning culture. What kind of examples are you setting up in the organization? It is not about saying that धीरे धीरे होगा यहाँ पे कुछ भी जल्दी नहीं होगा. What kind of alternates to instant gratification can you create? What if you did something, you get a challenge. Just because you did it well, you get a challenge to get it done. Okay. And if you get that done and you get this done and then you get this done, then you get to get this. That builds over a period of, let us say, 6 to 8 months. And then people get the prize at the end. Unfortunately, without a prize at the end, be it tangible or non-tangible, nowadays it's very, very, very difficult to motivate people. The other day, I was just reading about this beautiful article about um, it was about how human beings are eventually all connected in the head. It's a very beautiful shorts, YouTube shorts. And I had three separate people in the room. One person could hear till the end of the conversation. They appreciated it. They said, wow, actually, ma'am, it's quite thoughtful. The other one pretended that he understood it. He had lost interest halfway. And the third one said, bahar bahut acha mausam hai, we should go out. Now, we are not even able to engage attention for such a short period of time, which is something thought-provoking and valuable for the kind of things that we do in our learning and development space. How do you expect people to be satisfied with a long-term plan? तुम उनको 2 महीने का plan दोगे, 6 महीने का plan दोगे, 1 साल का plan दोगे, you will lose their interest. So we now have to throw in carrots in between. Not financial, because we are not in HR, we are not running our own companies. If you are running your own companies, please do. If you are not an entrepreneur and you're working for someone else, you will have to find out your own carrots. Carrots can be short-term assignments. That's a great carrot. We just spoke about it. Short-term assignment can be a great carrot. Mentorship opportunity can be a great carrot. An external conference can be a great carrot. A 3 months coaching program is a great carrot. These are instant gratifications you can give to people to keep them motivated for the larger picture. Because you and I know, बिरयानी बनने में 3 घंटा लगेगा, उतना ही लगेगा, उससे कम में नहीं बनेगा. It takes that much time. If you try to fasten it up, it will just be a burnt hot mess. So dealing with this also depends upon how we put in these carrots or put in these practices and lead by example when it comes to building a learning culture in the organization. Otherwise, you will always be fraught with these problems. People wanting to get solutions, promotions, recognition, acknowledgement, rewards, salary increments at very short durations, which will be out of your scope, and eventually people will lose respect for you because you promise them, if you stick with me, if you stick with the plan, I will get you from A to B. They will lose your respect because they say, "Oh, wo to raha nahi hai, time to bahut lagta hai." One, no non-realistic promises, and number two, build a learning culture where it is, I won't say forced patience, but then some element of patience is built in because it will take as much time for people to, get ready for the next step. I'm sorry for a very philosophical, longish answer. Was it Ricky? Who was it? Somebody had
Yes.
asked me this. Yeah. Did it make sense, Ricky, or did I totally confuse him?
Uh, I need more clarification. It's not
Yeah.
confusing, but still, it's not.
Acha, real life example though. Let's
Uh,
talk about it. We have some time. Bol.
you talk
Give
about
me a
youngsters, talking about people in the organization stuff. If I come back home, I
oh,
find it very difficult to even give the instant gratification to my own kids. She'll
oh,
come and she'll say, "कि नहीं, नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है," and you take a lot of time.
oh,
Telling them that this is actually a theory which will take time, it will happen, but
oh,
they're not ready for that. That's absolutely true. Now, the
oh,
problem is that how to do that at times, you know, they themselves change their
oh,
interests. Okay, it
oh.
happen, but
So
then
how do you make
there
sure that
is
you
a
do
reason for a churn
WBS?
also, in the
Yeah, WBS karo. What is WBS?
organization.
WBS is work breakdown structure.
Okay.
Whatever you people are trying to achieve. Nowadays, I break them into very, very small daily, monthly, daily, weekly, monthly, and 6 monthly or 3 monthly goals. That's what I have started doing with my teams because I am facing the same problems. People
Mm.
will come, they will lose interest, they will begin with excitement, and then after that, I can see them slacking off. For
Mm.
example, we began this activities dashboard, which was very important for us to make sure that we reach the end of the implementation of our training cycle.
Mm.
And after 2 weeks, people lost interest. Boring hai. Kya hai? हर दिन dashboard hai. So I said, well, if you don't get this dashboard, you get a red, and at the end of it, you don't get your income. It straight away gets tied into your KRH. Now that's something that they want. Okay. So with children, it can be very difficult. I can't coach you there. But for office, that's what I've realized. Daily targets. Stand
Okay.
up meeting, stand down meeting. What were your targets today? What is your larger target? What is your KRA? How does it translate into your yearly goal? How does it translate into your 90 days goal? How does it translate into a monthly goal, weekly goal, daily goal? How are you tying it back into your final objective?
Break it
So,
down into weekly
smallest piece,
small targets
chota
and
chota,
give them
chota chota.
something on that, and that satisfies
Yes,
the gratification.
that
Okay.
satisfies them because at the end of it, तुम बोलोगे
Yes.
शाबाश तुमने कर
Yes.
लिया because that's they
Yes.
want to hear. So that's what I did
Employee
in
of the
last
day,
3 days.
employee of the month, employee of the week, probably something.
Employee of the week, employee of the month तो करो. चलो ठीक है वो भी. What I do is I bring them into a room and I insult them if you don't do it.
Okay.
Sorry, but am I recording this? Oh no. I never said it. I don't insult anybody. I say very nice things. I tell them that you need to do better. I never insult anybody, okay? But I just get them into a room and I tell them, क्या तुमको डेली एक काम दिया था तुमने ईमेल नहीं भेजा क्या कर रहे हो how will things get done so one of the other things also is that sometimes the way we've grown up I mean I can say this safely for myself you guys are much younger there is this habit of us treating people as younger and having more allowance for them right now I've realized that one of the other things that we also have to do as learning experts is talk to people as adults. Sometimes we try to protect them, give them too much allowance. Talk to them as adults or somebody who is responsible for earning their livelihood and meeting a certain target. And if
Hmm.
it hasn't happened, you cannot simply say nahi hua. Because that is one of the other escape mechanisms people take nowadays. Nahi hua, kya kare? You know what will you do? So obviously you're not going to beat anybody. You're not going to do anything. You cannot scream at people. Those days of corporate culture are gone. So you give
Yeah.
them targets and you mark them a red and do a lovely dashboard and send it to the whole team. Don't send it to your boss.
Okay.
Send it to the team. I won't say it's insult, but it actually makes somebody make red in the face that ये छोटा
Yes.
सा काम था ये भी नहीं किया. So
Yes.
those are few things I am also learning, brother.
That's effective. I've seen that.
Yeah, you have to learn along the way. It's quite challenging. But for us, the yearly goal is enough. We will slowly,
Yes.
steadily sit in the corner like a carpenter keeps making his tool in the corner. We'll keep at it. But then keeping others engaged is very difficult because your table is also dependent upon your hammer being sharpened, you getting the wood on time, you getting the specifics on time. वो तुम्हें कोई लाके नहीं दे रहा time से, तो तुम्हारा भी तो impact हो रहा है ना. So
True.
you now need to break it down at such small levels. That's what is in project management. They call it WBS. They are small work packages that you create, or small targets to reach the larger targets. That's what you do in your daily job.
Nice.
And we do that, of course. We will do that in our blending training exercise. We'll create a course curriculum which will have modules, which will have transactional level details. And I want to save the last half an hour for that. And I also want to give 10-15 minutes for any questions we might have. So let's get down to it. Thankfully, I've started recording already. So let's go into my presentation. I'm going to change the slide. Which slide were we at? We were at, yes, types of blended learning models. We have finished that, and now we are going to move into something a little more obvious, but still exciting. Let's go here. Okay. Now we are going to talk about types of blended learning. We looked at the models. What kind of models? Brief recap, we said face-to-face driver model, flipped model, enriched virtual model, flex model, rotation model, online driver model. And then we also did a little bit of a manthan or a discussion on rotation models and how it can add value to you being a learning and development expert, adding value to human resources, adding value to the larger objective of the organization. This is where you actually get an opportunity to earn a seat at the table and influence decisions which actually create the talent pipeline for the organization. Now let's look at the types of blended learning. First one, very obvious, online classroom teaching and learning. There's no geographical barrier. Classes can be handled virtually. This is one method. Then there's self-paced learning, which most of you are very aware of. It's done, it's recorded, it's given to people. And then there is physical and virtual classroom, which happens parallelly. There is a special name for this. We'll talk about this at the end of our session today. When you do physical, virtual together, okay? Then there is like course study where you do self-study techniques. Give 3 or 4 techniques to people and you say, "Arey, dekho, tumhe isse madad hota hai ki nahi?" See if this supplements. These are generally those questions or those segments of your assignment or your course material which you are allowed to do as a non-mandatory. It is not necessary for your certification, but these are the real tools that will really help you. Most people will skip it. If you're smart, you will use it because this is where the additional, when I was studying, there used to be NCERT books, there would be Tata McGraw-Hill books. Tata McGraw-Hill books would always be given as additional reading. They would be fun to read. People won't read it because उसमें से तो question नहीं आता exam में. But that is the real juice. Okay? So you give various kind of study, self-study techniques, etc., for people to support them in their learning experience. Sometimes the core material can be boring, but those supplementary methods make it exciting. Okay. Then, of course, there is practical lab sessions. We have all experienced it in schools, we have experienced in colleges. At work, we experience it as conclaves, workshops, brainstorming sessions, projects, outdoor sessions, strategy sessions. That is how we experience practical lab sessions. They're called lab. They sound a little sciencey, but that is exactly what it means. That is basically people are requested to do things at remote locations without doing anything risky. That means that not lose any dollars in the process and still achieve results. Okay. These are the types of blended learning. The why I brought this up is it's silly and a childish slide, but it's important to not get confused between the models and the types of blended learning. So this is again your education to make sure that when somebody says एक ही तो बात है, एक बात नहीं है. There are types of blended learning and then there are models of blended. Yeah. Now let's look at how blended learning helps us. See, blended learning का benefit बहुत लोग आपको बताएंगे. क्या बताएंगे? Interaction ज़्यादा होता है. People will say there is more exchange of ideas. It's more practical. It is more realizable in terms of time, effort, patience, activities. But what people will not tell you is how it stimulates the different senses. If you remember, there are different kind of learning styles. What are the learning styles? Jatpat batao. Auditory, visual, work model,
Kinesthetic.
VARK.
Kinesthetic.
Yes, kinesthetic and reading, writing. So work model allows you to classify people. And remember, there is a lot of controversy for the work model as well. People say it's very limiting. It puts people in boxes. It doesn't allow to people to bloom. It dismisses various abilities. Not everybody is only a visual or only an auditory learner. For example, if it's very boring material, I will not listen to it. Even though I am an auditory learner, I love to listen to things and learn. But if it's boring, for example, I was listening to a book the other day, it was a boring research paper, and I just stopped listening to it and I switched to something different. So it also largely depends upon external factors, mental state, and stimuli. Let us say that you are in a very happy state. You won't prefer to sit down and read a Kindle. You might want to listen and learn. Whereas in a state where you're a little more somber, a little more tired, you don't want somebody blabbering in your ear, you might want to actually read and learn. So the work model has actually over the years gone through a lot of criticism that you are putting people in boxes. There are various other ways people react, respond, and learn. But having said that, it still is a good classification of your preferred option. There is always a preferred option. Like, I love roti and I don't like rice as much. But for some things, I would prefer rice. But in most of the cases, I will prefer a roti. So primarily, I am a roti person. Similarly, in learning styles, largely depending upon the stimulation of the senses, our temporal memory, which is at the front of our brain, is eventually going to pass information to our long-term memory. And that information will stay in the long-term memory if we are making sure that we are taking care of the forgetting curve. Have you guys read about the forgetting curve? I'm sure you have somewhere. Have you read about the forgetting curve? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
ये मत बोलो नहीं पढ़ा है. I will get a heart attack. You guys haven't read about the forgetting curve?
Yeah, I did.
I'm not remembering exactly
The
what we are talking.
forgetting curve says, thankfully, curve says that if you do not repeat the information at close intervals for at least 4 weeks, it doesn't get translated from this memory, temporal memory, to long-term memory. And that is where spaced learning technique works largely. What is spaced learning technique? That means tell you that I told you, give you an example to tell you that I told you just some time back, then talk about something else, then remind you that I told you, and I also give you an example for you to remember. So it's called the 4-week technique. So basically, it says in short term or uncomplicated, it was a joke. Just to uncomplicate it, people say that when you tell people an information for the first time, they keep it in the temporary space. It's like an almirah. You take it, you shove it in the almirah. Okay. And then after some time, it keeps lying there and you don't use it. So eventually that information dissipates and goes away. Just like you will open the almirah and say, Ye kya pada hua hai? And you throw it. For you to move that information into permanent memory, what you have to do is you have to reinforce this. It's called spaced repetition. Over a period of time, if you repeat the information through exercises, activities, online workshops, you remind people of the information, you do recaps, you do quiz, you do dipsticks, you do checks, that information eventually becomes a part of your long-term memory. So that's the spaced repetition technique. You should have been taught this in cognitive learning. You must have been taught in that. Kahin na kahin hoga. So having said that, we go back to our blended learning model. So what is the blended learning model really targeting? If you look at psychology, there's something called a cognitive load. You must have learned about cognitive load when you were learning cognitive training methods. Everybody's learned about cognitive load and how to balance cognitive load.
Yes.
So when you balance cognitive load, basically you're not overwhelming people with a lot of information. If I remember my quantum physics classes, I used to be overwhelmed beyond imagination. There would be my professor coming from the front with all his theories and ideas. He would be throwing Einstein into the mix. He would be referring to all kinds of books. He would be referring to all kinds of experiments. My practical exams would be due. There would be an overwhelm of information coming my way, and that too not in the way that you receive today. Today, there is a lot of digital information. In our case, we have to run to the library for one copy of a book or two copies of the books from which you have to gather the information, put it together. Huge cognitive load. What happens? Stress, burnout. You don't tend to remember things. You lose appetite. You go into anxiety. So to reduce cognitive load, you pace out information. So you give people some of the information as visual, some of it as auditory, some of it is chalo baad mein kar lena, activity. So it blended learning manages effectively to reduce the cognitive load and appeal to your senses. It's a little bit of everything, which eventually all comes together to fit in all the pieces of the puzzle. And that is why that's the biggest advantage of blended learning is it appeals to the senses of the people. In addition to the regular benefits, क्या है? Better ROI, faster realization, shorter learning curve. ये तो किताबों में लिखा हुआ होगा. This is one benefit that not everybody talks about, but it is the most tangible benefit which results into all other benefits. Let's look at it one more time. So blended learning stimulates different senses. Let's look at it. How? So how is it stimulating your visual senses? Through infographics, through videos, through other activities that you're having to do where you're interacting with your senses. Then there is auditory stimulation. Let us say you're listening to lectures while you are going for a jog or a run, or somebody is transcribing the lecture that is there. So you are only listening to the highlighted portions that have been spoken in the lecture. You have that option through blended learning. Or you are listening, for example, I tell you, the top number one project management podcast in today's world is this one. So why don't you guys go and listen to this episode? It will make a lot of sense. Again, I'm leaving this to your discretion as to how you want to learn it. It is not necessarily a part of the learning experience, but what it is a supplementary activity that you can do and benefit from it tremendously. Then textual, you are giving some white papers, you are giving some tutorials, you are giving some PDFs, and also you are giving summary, reflections from this module, key takeaways, all of that is the textual stimulation. And then, of course, there is interactive, where we are talking right now. We are discussing. We are sharing problems. We are also disagreeing. No, ye nahi samajh aaya. And then we can also do role play. There is various kind of digital interactive scenarios. And if I had a lot of money and I could go ahead and create an avatar and we could play a game on something that we are talking about, that would be even more fantastic. It's not happening right now, but that's also an option that you can explore. Many organizations nowadays have their onboarding experience because the office travel is much less. In hybrid, they have the onboarding experience as a avatar where you walk into the office, you do a virtual office tour, all of that happens. So the onboarding exercise becomes fantastic. Even though it is a lot of information download, but still it becomes in a fun way, stimulating all the senses of a human being. So I wanted to also talk about how we can use blended learning strategies to translate very basic things that we talk about in the learning and development strategy. So often people say, okay, blended learning एक चीज है, मगर उसके अंदर there are other things. So how do we translate that into the blended learning context? So let's look at that. So let us say we have to use blended learning strategy for PDFs, documents, ebooks. क्या कर सकते हैं? So we can do an instructor-led training based on new hire training programs, which you can give PDF documents for people to follow up. So blended learning क्या हुआ? आपने सीधा उठा के you didn't give a document to people कि पढ़ लो कब कितनी बार पढ़ लो, अपने पढ़ लो. नहीं किया आपने. आपने उनको पहले दिखाया global footprint, this many employees, this is the spread, this is the business, this is what we do. And then you give them the important links. How many of you have gone into an induction training, especially in a new organization, onboarding training or induction training, and felt, oh my God, ये तो बहुत ज़्यादा बता दिया, मुझे तो कुछ भी नहीं याद है. How many of you experienced that? That I have done it for multiple number of times. I've changed quite a few jobs. So most of the times I just go and sit like this. मैं कहा बता देंगे, पता चलेगा चल ही जाएगा. बता रहे हैं, you smile and you nod and you look great, but you spend time networking with the other people who joined you. ठीक है, क्योंकि वो तुम्हारे partners in crime है, एक साथ join हुए हो. They will help you. I don't listen to one word that's happening because anyways it will come to me as a PDF. It will be there on the self-service portal. It will have all of that information. But this is not to belittle the knowledge, the, what should I say, the formal training. It's just that eventually, if you do not translate into a strategy of spaced repetition, the same thing that I just explained, unless and until the repetition happens over a period of 4 weeks, it will not become permanent information. So you will tell me my global footprint is this is what I do, this is what I don't do. I will only remember what I need to remember to do my job. So how do you translate documents? You basically give an ILT and then you give the documents to people. Again, when you give videos and podcasts, don't send links to people. Ye dekh lo apne aap. Many supervisors do that. I know of many trainers who do that. Ye pad lo. Weekly thought for the week. Information nugget for the week. Send a video. Are, how it's you have to give some context. So only and only if you give some context as to what this video will solve for you, the WIFM and how it can be applied to your job, people will not listen to that video. They will put your video in the trash can. और they will keep it for बाद में देखेंगे. तो वेला है मेरा ट्रेनर, वो भेजता रहता है ऐसी चीजें, बाइट साइज लड़ी के नाम पे दिमाग खराब करता रहता है. So you don't want to be that trainer. You want to give them context. Hey, this is what popped up and this is what is going to help you if you are able to implement it in so and so time. This is just an 11 or 12-second video. I hope this helps you. Let me know how it goes and also let me know if it added value, or maybe share an example how you applied it today. Thank you. Have a great day. That's a great way to send a video because you're giving a context. You're also telling how long it will take to look at it, and you're also asking for some feedback. And if somebody is sincere enough to actually click on it, they might actually send a feedback. And knowing today's generation, they will send feedback, even if you don't ask for it. Okay, now let's look at puzzles and games. Again, you send a puzzle and a game, you get branded as that HR person or that training person who keeps sending these silly things. But if you are able to explain the WIFM in your classroom sessions or whatever you are engaging as a learning experience in, it becomes relevant, it becomes useful. So online puzzles and games you can send as a periodic reinforcement of knowledge. For example, there is something called PKT. Most corporate organizations use this word. What do they say? PKT, process knowledge test. जो आप रोज कर रहे हैं, just a refresher on that. Many people will say, रोज करते हैं, इसका भी test ले रहे हैं. Why? Because not all aspects of your job you test and try every day. Some of the aspects you tend to forget. For example, let us say there is a product refund policy that people are supposed to know thoroughly. But for quite some time, we haven't handled a refund. And this is a partial refund, which can be even more complicated. The employees have a chance to forget about it. Maybe the SOP is not handy. Maybe they have not practiced it enough. So in that situation, sending these small nuggets, these reminders, these puzzles can be highly helpful. Last but not the least, specifically, case studies, simulations, and interactive assessments. These are a little more serious stuff. Why are they serious stuff? Generally, they become an outcome of some kind of an IDP, individual development plan. If people are facing repeated kind of problems that is happening in quality, or the organization is experiencing similar kind of problems, and they've been able to crack it, in that situation, simulations, case studies, and interactive assessments are a great way for that spaced repetition, for the information to be provided, and then to make sure that the information gets translated into long-term memory. So these are some strategies you can use using the digital formats. So I've been speaking for a long time. Let me stop and ask for any questions. Any questions on these strategies that we just spoke about? Thoughts, feelings, emotions are also welcome. मैं बहुत पढ़ा रहे हो, 3 घंटे क्यों पढ़ा रहे हो? That's also
Once the reminder is sent, the quiz is sent that, the PKT is kind of PKT is being sent. Then you'll have to do a follow-up also. Then it becomes a problem that how to keep a track of everything and
कोई
make.
फॉलोअप नहीं करना. PKT नहीं करोगे तो रेड मार्क आएगा. Just you can't exit the bloody screen.
अच्छा, अच्छा, अच्छा.
You can't go home. And it has to be online. Make sure that your process knowledge test, unless and until you are a highly technical company where you have to actually go onto an Excel sheet and do stuff, your PKTs have to be multiple choice, sharp, less time consuming, and they have to be completed before you log out. Simple and straight. You can't go home without that. And if you do, it will not be nice next day. Just let's make it very sure. And PKTs don't happen every week. They happen once a month. You can also decide it can happen maybe in 15 days. For labs, I used to work for an organization where there were a lot of chemicals and labs and science involved. They had process knowledge tests every week. And that used to happen on a Friday when people would be relaxed. And we used to make it fun, we used to make it valuable. And we also would leave a section. What is that one thing that you would like to share, which was absolutely new for you today? And these were all research geeks we would work with. They would share information. वो हमारा case study बन जाता था अगली बार से. And we would copy paste and we will keep them, those materials. It's also a great way to collect information from people. So PKTs, make them mandatory. Just like you have mandatory tests. And they have to be set up and email triggers that इसने किया नहीं है यार. ऐसा कैसे नहीं करोगे? There are some basics that you have to maintain, especially if you're running a tight L&D department. Follow up तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं करना.
Thank you.
Welcome. Anything else? Sorry, I'm getting a few WhatsApp messages. I need to close that window. Any other questions, doubts, clarifications? Okay, फिर शुरू करते हैं the next section. Okay, and that next section that we are going to talk about is what's people don't listen to me when I say don't WhatsApp me daily sessions. Okay. The next thing we are going to talk about is fun, blended learning, in person, synchronous, asynchronous, सबका एकदम जिसे बोलते हैं what was that word my Jat friend had taught me? I'm forgetting the name. Okay. It's basically a mishmash. But my friend had taught me a word. Jamal Ghota. Yes, we've mixed up everything. It's a Jamal Ghota. There is a matrix now. Blended learning. We are talking about blended learning, in-person, distance, synchronous, asynchronous. Oh my God, what's it? Yeah. So blended learning is basically letting you now understand. If somebody is trying to confuse you, asynchronous, synchronous, in-person, distance, everything is included in blended. So let's look at this matrix. I found it to be singularly helpful, and I actually found this graphic only because I was trying to get this class going. And I found it to be fantastic because it basically tells you that blended learning incorporates synchronous, asynchronous, in-person, as well as distance learning, all the elements together. What is the in-person element? In-person elements will be group exercises, face-to-face conversations, lessons, especially the conversations. In our case, I think more than exercises, we have conversations. And in case of asynchronous learning, it's self-study. For example, I tell you, मैंने ये course पढ़ा है, ये कर लो. मैंने ये white paper दिया है, ये देख लो. Why don't you read about hybrid learning? What is hybrid learning and how is it different from blended learning, etc., etc. That becomes your in-person interaction. But interestingly, these in-person interactions can also be classified into synchronous and asynchronous, which makes it beautiful. Similarly, let's look at the distance experiences. Virtual classes, जैसे आपने miss कर दिया class, आपने बाद में सुन लिया. That's a distance experience. Then you call somebody, maybe you call Tina and say, Tina, I'm not able to understand. I heard you say about this. Can you tell me something, etc., etc. And I tell you X, Y, Z, or maybe 3 or 4 of you set up a separate call. That becomes distance learning. Why? Because one, you are not interacting with the trainer live. You are sending a question, expecting a response, and the trainer might respond to you immediately. Then it becomes in person. If she or he doesn't, then it becomes a distance because the person sends a voice note or maybe sends you a document. Then in this instant messages or discussion forums that we set up. Then there is collaborative work online, which is like fabulous, and it can also be a disaster. How many of you have their Excel sheets rewritten by idiots because you're all working on the same Excel sheet. हुआ है? नहीं हुआ है? If nahi hua hai, then you are lucky. But we've had collaborative sheets where everybody is working on the sheet and somebody by mistake deletes your information. But then it's also a very amazing way to save work, especially when you're, let us say, preparing a presentation to be prepared and all of you are preparing your own slides and putting it in one deck so that your boss doesn't have to follow up with multiple people. All of you are working on the same deck, which is on a OneDrive, Microsoft OneDrive, and all of you are putting information together and also helping each other's slides. कि मेरे वाले slide के ये update कर दे यार तेरा point है. And people are putting everything together. That's also distance working and can be distance learning as well in case it's an assignment. Okay. Then there is e-learning modules that you're doing. Okay. Shivani is saying it happened in last week's on Google Sheet. Oh shit, I'm sorry. It's not a nice experience to have to rebuild data all over again. इसलिए मैं अपने पास हमेशा एक copy रखती हूँ before I paste. Then there is revision that can happen. Then there are remote tests that can happen. Now see, there are so many activities you are doing over as a long distance, but they can also be classified into synchronous and asynchronous. So next time somebody tries to confuse you that synchronous learning is the same as blended learning or asynchronous learning is not relevant for blended learning, you remember this matrix and you know it is an amalgamation of experiences, synchronous, asynchronous. And from synchronous and asynchronous, you know that those are themselves amalgamation of learning in person as well as learning in distance. Okay. Did I manage to confuse totally everybody? Have I succeeded? Or have I failed? A little bit.
No, no.
Food for thought, ma'am. Food for thought. Always food for
Okay.
thought.
Food for thought. Okay. So now let's look at the pros and cons of blended learning. Pros, flexibility, increased accessibility. Cons, technological dependence. नहीं होगा उसके बिना technology का major dependence होता है. Then there is pro is interactive educational experience. Cons is significant overload for teachers. Now a trainer वो आएगा अपना material लेके आएगा मेरे को ही देख लो अपना slide लेकर आए सारा कुछ बता दो काम खत्म क्या इंटरैक्टिव एक्सरसाइज इनका क्विज कराओ इनका ये कराओ है समझ ही नहीं आ रहा इन लोगों को इनके इतना कुछ क्यों चाहिए it's an overload for the teacher but then the whole idea is that the long term benefit it's not an instant gratification but the long term benefit is when you do a traditional download of information as compared to that when you mix up the other elements, what happens is people are able to use the concepts that you are teaching them into real life and say, acha ye hota hai. They are able to relate to it, understand it better, respond to you better. And not only does their understanding increase, your connection with them also increases. So it is a significant overload, but it's worth it. Then there facilitates instant communication in blended learning because the trainer is very much available. But when you are doing by yourself, for example, couple of you missed a couple of lectures, और उसमें कोई supervision नहीं है, समझ आ रहा है, नहीं समझ आ रहा है, totally miss हो गया, there is no supervision. So that can be a con. Like I was mentioning, there's some course that I've taken, I've only done 2 modules. There are 10 modules. I don't feel like doing it. There's no supervision. Nobody's marring a danda on my head. Now, one of the things that I loved about one of the portals, obviously I can't take name of the portals, but that portal said, if you do not complete this course in 14 weeks, the course will vanish. That means that I've paid 3,000 rupees for that course. I will not be able to see it. I will not be able to see it, save it, store it, transcribe it, record it, kuch nahi kar sakta. So now I'm forced, that's another way of supervision, to make sure that I complete it within the 3 weeks time period. That's an interesting way of getting it done, but just thought I would share with it. Then efficient student assessment. Of course, it comes with blended learning because now you're not only assessing on what is blended learning. Now you're asking more intelligent questions which are practically applicable. But of course, there is cost involved because you are now going to try and get assessments done through Menti or online platforms. You're asking people to read white papers, telling them to research material. So there is overheads involved. We've already mentioned about it once. Then the pro is it fosters collaboration. People discuss with each other and learn. The bond between the learners is much better. And the con is increased cognitive load for the student because information is again coming to you in from multiple directions. Trainer बोल रहा है, टेस्ट दे रहा है, white paper दे रहा है, activity दे रहा है, टेस्ट दे रहा है, ये भी करके देना है, वो भी करके देना है. Unless and until the trainer is competent enough to manage this cognitive load by staggering it out, it might convert into a con, which is rare, but still, in case of inefficient administration of blended learning, it might turn out to be a con. Okay. So, any doubts, questions about the pros and cons of blended learning? Anyone? Any questions? Any doubts?
Not now, ma'am. Just thinking on
Okay.
what you said. And I especially like how you told us about this spaced repetition wala thing.
Hmm.
So that was something which I'm taking away from this lecture.
This is for parents as well. It's for almost everybody. That's how the brain works. The brain science, neuroscience of the brain works like that. You can apply it for even for training animals, pets. You can use it for training kids. You can use it for also training your, what should I say, people with whom you work every day. उनको रोज remind कराओ. Don't irritate them with the reminders. Be innovative and interested about the reminders. But then the typical work reminder is 4 weeks. 4 weeks के बाद मत बोलो, उनको याद आ जाएगा. Long term memory में shift हो जाएगा जो भी information. Now, if you're telling them information about dinosaurs, which is not going to be used, there's no point in doing spaced repetition because they are not going to use it in their day-to-day lives. Give them information which is relevant for them and then use the spaced learning technique. Sometimes we all have to learn about history, evolution, this and that, facts, figures, data, which we can actually refer to on a Google or a notebook or a paper. In that situation, we have to also chunk it out. Chunking भी तो करी है ना हमने, micro learning और chunking क्या बोलते हैं? What is the fundamental premise of chunking or micro learning? Prioritization of learning modules. The ones that are highest priority need to be chunked. They need to be put in the front and all the remaining information has to be trailed. So it becomes a micro learning module where the first chunk is the most impactful chunk. And that you repeat over a period of time because they are going to use that every day in their work life. Yeah. Now we are going to also look at what are the similarities or the differences, whatever, however you would like to look at, for blended learning and e-learning. मैंने बताया था ना, I will make a complete full-blown effort to make sure that I totally confuse you. So why don't we call e-learning as blended learning? क्यों नहीं बोलते हैं? E-learning is a method that uses internet via different learning platforms. That's it. It is not a methodology. It is a mode. Blended learning is a combination of online learning and traditional classroom interaction. E-learning is everything happens on the internet. Nothing happens through live interaction. What is the nature of e-learning? Conducted completely with the use of internet, and blended learning uses face-to-face interactions as well as online learning. This is being repeated so that, again, like I said, when somebody tries to tell you, एक ही तो होता है, नहीं होता है. E-learning or blended learning are different things. Okay? Feedback. E-learning, very less opportunity. If I give you Udemy course, क्या कर लोगे feedback देके? The guy who has posted the course, if he reads the feedback, good, doesn't read it, तुम अंधेरे में तीर मार रहे हो. But in blended learning, you can give feedback, you can receive feedback. Guidance. Learners are not generally guided frequently when it's e-learning, whereas in blended learning, you are handheld and guided frequently. What are the key differences? 100% online, blend of in-person and e-learning. Ability to engage with the teachers and materials, limited engagement, whereas in blended learning, you maintain human interaction. Complete flexibility, e-learning में, जो मर्जी, जैसे मर्जी, जब मर्जी. But in blended learning, उतना नहीं है because the teacher has a certain schedule, certain style, certain way things are taught. Similarities, of course, you can make them. The पैसा बचता है. You put the learner at the center. It saves time. Your ability to track trainee progress. Okay. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the difference between blended learning and hybrid learning. Let's understand what is the difference. Most people will say, एक ही तो होता है. Is blended learning and hybrid learning the same thing? Anybody wants to take an attempt?
No.
They're not? Okay, let's hear. How are they different?
So, predominantly hybrid learning is learning happening. It's a synchronous form of learning where
Hmm,
some of the audience would join online, virtual, and the other part of the audience would be in the classroom, face to face.
hmm, hmm,
But it's a synchronous form of learning, whereas
hmm.
blended is asynchronous.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Pradeep. Very few people can, nicely articulate it. I have heard multi people say एक ही तो होता है. And for many years after, when during COVID people said हम hybrid में move हो गया, hybrid में move हो गया. I used to also get a little confused if people would take me really into a corner saying that how is it different? Then I found this graphic. And let me show it to you. I love this graphic. It really, really made things very clear for me. And like Pradeep mentioned, face-to-face learning and blended learning, face-to-face learning and online support, when both of them overlap, it's blended learning. But when you are able to accommodate people who are online at the same time, when you're interacting with people in front of you, that is called hybrid. Okay. So like on the right hand side, it says the fundamental difference between hybrid and blended learning is the relationship between classroom learning and online learning. In blended learning, online learning supplements the in-person learning in the classroom. However, in hybrid learning, online learning is an alternative to classroom. Okay. And thank you. Really, really appreciate it, Pradeep. Not everybody can articulate it that well. Okay. Now let's go and look at a little more depth as to point of difference. Again, this is something which I'm appealing to your textual ability to read. Read it in the PowerPoint. I'm not going to make you read all of this, but then it's again, the point of difference is as in broken down into teaching methods, learning pace, employee experience, flexibility, technology use, instructor's note. I found it to be really nice. So I've left it here. Read it at your own pace. We'll not waste time with this. You will get this presentation. Let's look at the 70-20-10 model. This is a familiar oldie but a goodie. But then tell me something. Does 70-20-10 always mean 70-20-10? 70%. ऐसे ही होता है हमेशा. So what liberties do we have with the model 70-20-10? What kind of liberties can we take? Anyone? Or have you taken any liberties with this model?
Depending upon
Need
the
need for every
variation.
cohort actually is different.
Hmm,
So
hmm,
as per what we are getting in TNA, as per what we are getting requests, because I work in our service industry kind of model. So as per the client also sometimes we need to make changes with the 70
okay,
20.
okay. I think Ricky was saying something.
I'm sorry,
The
sir.
ratio can vary depending on the requirement. Where you want to
Hmm,
put instead of 70, you want to have more, you can have it.
hmm,
So it's
hmm.
in your hand. It's just a model, but otherwise applicable.
Yes.
How much is
Yes.
required? Somebody requires more rehearsals or more hand holding. So you'll have to do that depending
Yes.
on the requirements.
I am glad you said that because many people argue. How do you decide what is 70? How do you ensure it is 70? This is not a doctor's medicine that we have to make sure that everything goes 70%, 20%, 10%. Variations are allowed. Now, would you like to know what is an ideal variation nowadays?
Yes.
Are you interested? I will show it. I found this on a Gartner study and I found it to be helpful. And nowadays, this is the ideal model. People are actually calling 55-25-20 to be actually the 70-20-10, where 55 is experiential, 25 is social, and 20% is formal, which earlier used to be the 10%. So this is based on the latest Gartner study. And again, this is again a guideline, like Shivani and Ricky and others must have said or thought that this is also something that you can vary. There is no set formula. But the idea is that there has to be a mix and match. And the predominance has to be for the on-hands experience. Okay? Make sense?
You keep reading a lot of material, it seems.
आप लोगों के स्लाइड्स बनाने वाले पढ़ना पड़ता है. You have to stay one step ahead. But I do read ATD, I do read Gartner, and they have really nice articles. That's what I love about them. 4 से 5 स्लाइड होते हैं, ज्यादा मटेरियल नहीं होता है, बोर नहीं करते हैं. एंड बिकॉज यू नो द टर्म्स, दे एक्सपेक्ट यू टू बी एन एडल्ट एंड दे एक्सपेक्ट यू टू बी अ प्रोफेशनल. दे डोंट गो डाउन टू लोएस्ट लेवल एक्सप्लेनेशन. सो वो डाल देते हैं, मेरे लिए फायदा हो जाता है. एक्चुअली पिक्ड अप फ्रॉम देयर वेबसाइट, द कलर स्कीम.
Gartner and the other one is?
ATD, American Training and Development.
Okay.
ATD, Gartner are good. Deloitte is good. KPMG can be a little wordy. बहुत लंबे लंबे white papers देते हैं, इतना लंबा लंबा मन नहीं करता पढ़ने का. But these guys, the American institutes, obviously they are always in a hurry. Americans are always in a hurry. So their material is short and sweet. You can read. ATD used to be CEB earlier. Even I used to enjoy CEB articles. Some of their articles on human resource and talent development are gold. If you find those articles on the website, you must try them. They're really, really good. They've actually increased a lot of knowledge that I didn't have when I began my training and development career. All
Thank
right.
you.
Can
Of
you
course.
please repeat CT?
CEB. Now it's become ATD. Don't worry. It's become ATD. If you go to the repository, you will find their articles, but वो CEB branded है क्योंकि वो पुराने हैं. But they are the same thing now. Okay. SHRM का भी material अच्छा होता है. They also do certifications for human resources and learning and development. They also actually host beautiful awards. SHRM awards are very esteemed awards. I applied for them. I won 2 of them when I was with Genpact. So I know they also have great blogs and articles, really, really nice. And organizations actually compete there for training and development awards. Okay. Let's look at the next exercise, which is our last half an hour. I wanted to show you how a case study looks like when you
अरे
look
यार,
at a blended learning
निकाल ला
experience.
तो तेरे-
A simple exercise,
हाँ,
which is for an
लगा दूं
organization called
या
Global
क्या करूं?
Tech Solutions. Okay.
2 की
When
जगह
you
फिर
say,
करूं?
1 second. Okay. So the organization's name is Global Tech Solutions. What are we trying to do? We are trying to solve their problem. What is their problem? There are 60 customer service representatives across 3 regions: North America, Europe, Asia Pacific. And their problem statement is they have declining customer satisfaction ratings. Okay. Their average resolution time has increased. And the problems are problem solving, communication, use of CRM tools. How will we design something? So मैंने आप लोगों को एक sample दिखाया है that if you go through the training need analysis process, etc., 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 something like this can be developed. A course structure, pre-training, post-training, week 1, week 2, week 3, ऐसे करके. There is a format, there is a duration, there is content focus. I want you guys to absorb this. Have a look at this. And if you want, I will make you read the problem statement one more time. What is the problem statement? There is 60 customer support representatives across 3 different regions who need to be trained. Why? Because there is declining customer satisfaction ratings, increased average resolution time for advanced training in problem solving, communication and CRM tools. इससे ये solve होगा. A little bit of an assumption, but then let us say you have done the TNA and you know इससे ये solve होगा. अब आपको ये roll out करना है. So a proposed course structure is this, and then there is an assessment structure also. कैसे evaluate करेंगे, क्या करेंगे? This is Kirkpatrick, all of you know. So absorb this before I give you the assignment. And you can do this assignment abhi, thoda sa हमारे पास time है, you can discuss it. And if you want, you can do it later also. And next session, we can discuss it. Have a look at the course structure. Very simple, very straightforward. First, we are saying we will do a pre-training, which will have an online survey. Then we'll have e-learning for a week. Okay. And the focus will be diagnostic survey, CRM basics, KPIs, कैसे support करना है. Then we will go into WILT, virtual instructor-led training. Because आजकल instructor-led training में लोगों के दिमाग में ऐसा photo छप गया है कि instructor-led training means somebody will stand in front of you and teach. Now people have started calling it WILT, virtual instructor-led training. And the duration, let us say 3 sessions, 90 minutes each. Again, there's no right or wrong. There's just a proposed structure. What will we teach them? How to solve problems? What kind of models you can use? You can do some role playing for people to understand how to handle the issue. Then over week 2 and 3, you can give them self-paced models. So productivity आपकी खत्म नहीं हो रही है. People are still on the job, but they are doing some self-paced modules, which is actually applying the learning they had in the field on a day-to-day life. They're working on communication styles, tone calibration. They're also working on empathy, so that the time which is decreasing customer satisfaction will start increasing. Okay. Then week 4, we do a bit of hand-holding. We do some virtual coaching. We do some of your cases, we pick it up and we say what you could have done better and what you did great, and give you some one-on-one feedback. Then just to make sure that the team is successful together, we give them a group assignment, okay, team-based simulation, where everybody puts in whatever they've learned over the last 4 weeks into practice. And then post-training, we do a field application, a real call application on moderation. So somebody is trying to solve to the end consumer or customer, and everybody else is listening, observing, and learning what can be done better, what cannot be done better. Does it sound okay? और जल्दी जल्दी में बनाया मैंने.
Yes.
Does it make sense? Okay.
It's kind of
Assessment में
mystery
Sorry.
shopping we do at the end.
Yeah.
Something.
which basically gives you a real flavor of what is the, what is the proof of the pudding. Then there is assessment evaluation. इसका कुछ proposal डाला है. ठीक है, ये तो मैंने आपको पका के खाना खिला दिया. Now let's give you something that you can work on. Okay? Design an effective blended learning program for remote team leaders. Okay? There are team leaders who are working from various parts of the world. And the company has reported increased attrition, reduced engagement scores, inconsistent team performance since moving to a hybrid work model. And the senior management wants to invest in developing their frontline leaders with practical, flexible learning solutions. So, kya karoge is the question for all of you. Now, not to leave you in the lurch as to what you should do, kahan se shuru kare, I have created this map for you. So, what are the few things you need to work on? So, I've given you 6 steps. 1, a needs analysis summary that you should prepare. Think about these things, how you want to do. You can write your needs analysis questions. Kaise karoge, questionnaire, survey, focus group, discussion, whatever you want to do. And then identify the target audience. Kinse loge, kya demographics, kya learning preferences honge. And then the challenges faced by the remote. This can be imaginary or it can be something that you can actually do if you would like it. Then the learning objectives, use the SMART format and dekho, based on those need analysis, what are some learning objectives you want to write? Then program structure and time. जैसा आपको मैंने एक table बना के दिया, maybe you want to use that. And then what kind of instructional strategies you want to use. For example, you want to do blended learning, you want to do scenario-based learning, you want to do flipped classroom. What one want to use? And for adult learning, how do you want to do? What kind of micro learning do you want to give? तुम video shorts भेजोगे, audios भेजोगे, अपने आप को record करके भेजोगे सुबह 10 second, something, a trainer's reminder, something like that. And spaced repetition we just spoke about today. Then there is technology and delivery tools. What kind of tools you want to use? If you have an LMS, MS Teams में डालोगे, Kahoot use करोगे, Zoom use करोगे, क्या tool use करोगे? ठीक है. And accessibility, global availability. मानो कोई बंदा रोमानिया है जो इंडिया के साथ काम करेगा. What kind of time zones and user engagement you will look at? Because the time difference is approximately 5.5 hours. How will you manage? And then assessment and evaluation strategy. How you will capture the various evaluation of feedback. I've tried to put this in 6 steps. This is for your brain's engagement to solve this problem. Okay. Now, how much time do we have right now? We have, it's 11 minutes past 1 o'clock. Does anybody wants to get started right now, or do you want some time with a pen and paper to sit down and work on it? What is your opinion? I am open. We can do an open discussion, or we can go do the work and come back and we can discuss next week. I don't have a problem.
I would like to go back, sit with this, and then maybe come back with the solution which I feel, and next week we can discuss upon it.
Okay. So what is the popular opinion, guys? How do you want to do this? But everybody has to do this, वरना मजा नहीं आएगा.
We'll do it next week.
ठीक है? So एक काम
Next.
करो. Let me give you some time to work on this because we have time. Instead of you going back and having your tea and going out, actually sit now because ये time हमारा class का ही था. Sit and think about it. At least make your basic bullet points so that next day when we begin, we can begin with discussing about it. Does that sound good?
Sure.
ठीक है जी?
Yes.
So this is the exercise I wanted to give you. I hope you will have fun with it. It's very generic, very independent of industries. Almost everybody can relate to it. And next time, हम शुरू में ये आधा घंटा अच्छे से discuss करेंगे various pointers. And if anybody has already repeated something, दूसरा बंदा उसे repeat नहीं करेगा. And then we'll move on. ठीक है? Fair?
Sure.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for a lovely, engaging session and spending so much time on your Sunday with me. I hope you learned something today. And if you didn't, I hope you had a great time. All right. I'll see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for your
Bye, ma'am.
session.
Have a nice
Ma'am,
day.
ma'am,
Thank
I
you.
need a
Yes.
I need a favor
Yes.
from you.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, so I want to know about some resources in consulting. I want to learn more about consulting and
Okay.
how to serve the clients better, and if
Hmm.
possible into learning and development. So can you please
Okay.
suggest something?
On consulting.
Yeah.
Okay. ठीक है. मेरे को hello भेजो WhatsApp पे मैं बताती हूँ. I'll find
Okay.
some resources and send them. All right. See you guys.
Just one thing,
Okay,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Just one thing.
Bye-bye. Have a nice
Bye.
day.
Hello.
You
Thanks,
too.
Can you hear
thanks
me,
for
ma'am?
your lovely
Before
teaching.
you
Vikram,
leave?
we can hear you. We
Yes,
can hear you,
yes.
Vikram. It's okay.
Yeah, actually, thank you so much, Shivani, for that acknowledging. I was just saying, ma'am, can I reach to you as well for this ATD because I'm looking
Message
for
कर
ATD
लेना.
certification and I need someone who can guide me.
Message कर लो. Message कर लो. No
All
problem.
right.
All
Thank you.
right. Bye.